This is the Into the Paddock Podcast.
We have to talk about that NASCAR race and that race finish because it seems as though, credit where it's due for NASCAR, it does have a habit of going viral, be it Chastain or bad things. This time, good thing. 3 wide, photo finish, 0.007 between the top three and 0.003 between first and second, which, side note, already is only the third closest NASCAR finish in history.
Yeah.
Well, Cup history anyway. There's been even closer Xfinity races. Wow.
Yeah. That finish came out of nowhere. I mean, I've had the privilege, I'm going to say privilege, of witnessing most of the closest finishes in my time of watching NASCAR, from 2003 Darlington to whatever year was at Talladega. Like, when these races finish close, oh boy, it is close. Though I will say NASCAR needs a little higher frame rate on that start finish line camera, because those cars looked a little ghosty. I'm like, are you sure?
It was brilliant, and immediately everyone likened it to the finish from the race at the beginning of Pixar's Cars.
Yes,
I
100%.
loved everything about that. A tweet I saw, unfortunately I don't remember who said it, said, "What a shame that they've demolished Fontana, because where are they going to hold the tiebreak race now?" Perfect. Kyle Busch alluded to the Lightning McQueen style finish and said that he just needed a couple more inches. His wife said she's been telling him that for years.
Oh,
Amazing. Just
woof.
incredible. Tweet of the week right there. A lot of people on Twitter have been saying that was one of the greatest races they ever saw. And the finish was great. And stage 3 was great, as we both kind of intimated a lot. But I know you feel the same way as me. It's a shame Greg isn't here, because I know he was a big fan of the whole race. I don't particularly get where the massive love for the race was in stages 1 and 2, because really the only stuff that happened was wrecks.
I feel like it's just a different expectation we have for NASCAR racing. Even though, as you said, I've watched NASCAR a whole lot longer than you. You still started watching NASCAR in the time where, before stage breaks and everything, before this reconfigure of Atlanta. Like, to me, just the idea of like actual racing and prolonged racing at Atlanta, the field would get spread out. You would have comers and goers, tires wearing, different pit strategies coming together. And as far as like the passing and racing action on track, I really miss, the multiple lanes. Some cars worked really well on the top line, they'd ring ride, and other cars worked really well on the bottom, taking the Kevin Harvick line. But this, like, the whole field was within a second pretty much the entire race, aside from the wrecks. Like if you took any single picture of the cars on track, you see 30 freaking cars in a single pack. And I mean, I guess if that's what you're looking for, cool. But to me, that's not necessarily racing. Like, it's not, the cars are so close together, the driver skill almost doesn't matter. The cars were, I will admit, were more on edge this time around at Atlanta, but you don't get to see drivers like Kyle Larson exhibit their wheelman style of driving. Like, we see him ring ride at Homestead, Miami. You see him ring ride at Darlington. You used to see him ring ride here at Atlanta. But like, they didn't really get to show that skill set that they have, or the racecraft. It was just whichever line got the run was the one that'd go to the front. Wasn't really this guy. He found grip on the top, and he's just ring riding. He's pulling out 5 seconds on the field because his car is just that good and that quick. There's no real fuel strategy like we saw in the other races, or even past Atlanta races where, hey, this team pulled a blinder, the driver stretched out the fuel, and he got the win that way. Both of those things were non-existent. I feel like people think that just because the cars are in close proximity, that means the racing is actually good. But if everybody's just driving around really close to each other, in a two wide procession, that's not really racing. They're all just stuck there like they were at Daytona. So yes, some people were more aggressive and tried to get back to the front when they made a bad move, but they did it fairly easily because everyone was just pretty much riding around. We saw Todd Gillen lose the lead a couple times making a bad move, and he'd drive right back up to the front because people knew it wasn't time to race, until the very end of the last stage. The last stage, it was great. I take nothing away from it. The finish, fantastic. You saw the drivers actually racing and pushing for that last stage. But the overall race as a whole, it just showed me the problems with this reconfigure of Atlanta. I mean, I'd much rather this happen at Texas than Atlanta because I feel, especially with this new package and new car, we see how it races at Kansas, at Las Vegas, other mile and a halves. It should have been done at Texas, this reconfigure, not Atlanta. Atlanta was something special.
This is the Into the Paddock Podcast.